Kendra again with Where's Moon Astrology. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the North Node moving into the sign of Gemini. Now if you're unfamiliar with what the North Node and South Node are, these are not physical planetary bodies. These are actually points that are formed by the orbit of the moon around the earth intersecting with the earth's path around the sun. Now I have a hard time visualizing that. I'm much better at just interpreting what it means in the chart. But there you go, you have an explanation now. Now what the North Node and South Node mean in the chart, and this can be extremely telling in your birth chart, but even by transit, it can tell you a lot about what we collectively are moving towards. Now, the North Node is where we are going. The South Node is what we are leaving behind. So what this might look like in a birth chart, let's use me for an example. My South Node is in Cancer. This means that I've kind of mastered in a past life, or however you want to interpret that, I've mastered the traits of Cancer. I've been in the home, I've been involved in the family. That has been what I've mastered in past lives. With my North Node in Capricorn, that is what I'm moving towards. It doesn't mean I can't have a home, can't have a family, can't invest myself in that, but it does mean that I can't get so caught up in the things of Cancer that I never move towards the things of Capricorn. I never master the lessons of Capricorn in this life because that is my soul's journey. It's actually extremely telling in a birth chart. Now the nodes actually move backwards, they move retrograde most of the time. So the North Node is actually moving from the sign of Cancer into the sign of Gemini. So what it means for the North Node to move into the sign of Gemini, it means that directly opposite you have the South Node, which will be moving into the sign of Sagittarius. And that is almost more telling, that's almost more worth focusing on, because you really need to understand what we are letting go of before you can focus on what we're moving towards. Now, the South Node in Sagittarius shows that we are letting go collectively of the need to be right. We're letting go collectively of the need to believe in something without having all the facts. We're letting go of the need to spew out our opinions without taking the time to fully understand the problem. Now, this is not to say that this is how Sagittarius people are. This is to say these are the toxic traits of the sign of Sagittarius in general. So we're looking at the toxic traits, we're looking at the things that are going to come up. Now, the reason that this is really worth looking at instead of just looking at the North Node in Gemini is because our journey towards the North Node in Gemini is not just about Gemini. We are going to be going through lessons collectively that show us the negative traits of Sagittarius. So it's really worth thinking about what those are, because a lot of the themes that we're going to be experiencing during this period of time are actually going to be Sagittarius themes, not Gemini themes. We're going to have to really understand why these patterns of behavior are toxic, to really understand why it's necessary to embrace that Gemini energy. So let's go a little deeper into the Sagittarius South Node, Gemini North Node axis, okay? With the South Node in Sagittarius, and you can see this with people who have South Node in Sagittarius in their natal chart and never fully move past that. I'm going to use those as an example. This is not to call anybody out in particular. This is just to say this is what I have seen in an actual chart. These are people who don't appreciate any kind of logic or routine. They don't appreciate things needing to be orderly. They like to act on intuition. They like to act on, their gut, and they don't want anyone to try to tell them what's best. And I understand that. I'm a Sagittarius moon. It makes a lot of sense to me why you wouldn't want to follow routines and structures in society. That's just natural Sagittarius energy, to not want to fall in line with what somebody else wants from you. But the thing is that with that negative South Node in Sagittarius energy, it's almost like being a rebel without a cause. They hate it just for the sake of hating it. They won't implement these structures and routines even though we really need those and they have their place. These will be the people so concerned with freedom that they don't care about theirs or anyone else's safety. Also with the South Node in Sagittarius, there can be a quality of being over philosophical and not really taking reality into account at all. They have these big ideas, these big visions, these bird's eye view of how things should be, and they want to live by that vision regardless of what reality actually looks like. They think, oh, that's the way it should be, so I'm going to pretend it is that way. No, it's not that way. You will get arrested. People, again, who have this South Node placement, with the South Node in Sagittarius, can be very rude and abrupt and think that they're speaking the truth when they're actually just being jerks. Now, the energy of Sagittarius is very high-minded, very intellectual, and very intelligent, but you do have to remember this axis. You know, you have Gemini. That's the side of this axis that's about information, that's about data. This is the energy of Mercury. You know, Sagittarius is the energy of Jupiter. It's about belief. It's about, you know, religion and faith and spirituality and things of that nature. And it's all very good and well, and it has its place. And we don't want to rely solely on data either. We are spiritual beings. We want to be able to connect spiritually, but there's a time and a place for all things. That's why we have all of these energies in the zodiac. Every one of them has their place. And right now, we are moving towards the age of data. We need that data. So with the North Node in Gemini, we are focusing on those facts. We're focusing on the science. We're focusing on the data. We're focusing on the well-executed research of professionals as opposed to our own inner truth. And the more we do that, the less we're going to suffer on both a macro and a micro scale. The energy of Gemini, being an air sign, can also be more social and more focused on other people, can be very focused on taking others' opinions into account. Gemini would be more of a sign as opposed to Sagittarius. They'd be the sign to seek out other people's opinions, want to hear different perspectives, and not take that too personally. Sagittarius can take things very personally because they can get hung up on what they believe about a situation and become very emotionally attached to that, even though Sagittarius doesn't like to show a lot of emotion. They can be very emotionally attached to their belief system, and it can be very personal for them. They can be very passionate about it, considering that they're a fire sign. Gemini, being an air sign, is going to be a little bit more detached. They're going to have a little bit more of an impartial approach to information, and they're going to want to hear a lot of different perspectives so they can kind of synthesize that and form a whole picture. While Sagittarius can also be a very condescending energy and kind of look down on other people for having differences of opinion from them, Gemini is that air sign energy, so it's going to be more sociable and want to connect with other people, not just to get nuggets of information out of them, not just to hear different perspectives, but because air signs inherently understand the need for that human connection, for, you know, sociable connection. I've noticed, like, with Sagittarius people, or people with prominent Sagittarius energy, myself included, there's like this belief almost that we don't need other people, and it's okay if we hole up in our houses, and we're all kind of doing that right now since, you know, we've got this whole quarantine thing going on. But it's okay for us to hole up in our house because we don't need other people, and everybody's stupid anyway, and we're just gonna like hang out in our ivory tower, and we don't need to talk to other people, we don't need to connect with them. We're more about personal freedom anyway. We care about ourselves and our freedom and our ability to make our own decisions. Sagittarius doesn't like anything too fussy. They don't like that mercurial energy because it feels kind of like a nitpicky energy. But right now, with the North Node moving into Gemini, we are supposed to be embracing and focusing on that nitpicky energy. We're supposed to be looking at the details. We're supposed to be discussing them. We're supposed to be looking at all facets of a situation without attaching ourselves to any of those different facets. In so many words, this whole transit, which is going to last for like 1.5 to 2 years, this whole transit is going to be about embracing the age of information, embracing differences of opinion, differences of perspectives, not getting too personally attached to any belief system, no matter how morally right you believe it is. It's very important to take everyone's opinion into account. And in the end, you may discard certain opinions and think that they're wrong in the end anyway, but it's important to take those in and kind of integrate them. But here's the thing, not everybody can be right. I think there's a little bit of truth in everything, and I think that that's something that Gemini really understands. That's why they have that dual nature that people really don't like sometimes. They think it's two-faced, but Gemini just really understands that there's kind of bits of truth in everything. They understand the dual nature of life, and that's something that we all need to be working to understand. On a personal level, it might be a really good idea for you to kind of notice the parts of your life that where you're like embracing that energy of Sagittarius in a toxic way, where you're really attached to your belief systems, where you think that you know better than everybody else. This is especially true when you think you know better than experts who have been studying things for their entire lives. That's really something you might want to examine if you're holding that belief. Also examine how reactive and defensive you get when your belief systems are challenged. People can be very hostile and very defensive of what they believe. And whether or not you have any Sagittarius personal placements, you have Sagittarius in your chart somewhere, and it's really going to be important for you to look at where that is in your life as well. So really examine how you've been embracing the toxic Sagittarius patterns, and on a personal level, if you choose to consciously embrace the higher energy of Gemini, not higher than Sagittarius to be clear, the higher traits of the sign of Gemini as opposed to the lower traits of the sign of Gemini, just to be clear. If you start working to embrace the higher traits of the sign of Gemini, this period of time will be a lot easier for you. Anyway, that's the end of my North Node and Gemini video. I really appreciate you watching. If you have any comments, please leave them below. I would love to answer them for you. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. I'll be posting videos just like this for every major transit, hopefully even more detailed. I really like to get into, how it affects your individual sign, but I just didn't have time right now, being stuck at home. I'm super busy, but I actually am though. Like, I've got a lot going on here. Again, thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day.